All right, we just passed midnight Eastern time. The clock rolled over to July 2nd. Happy Canada Day, everyone, by the way. In Halifax, we were lucky enough to get a boil water advisory, but that means most of the big free agents have been gobbled up. And for me, just generally, today was a day of big contracts. Bigger than I would maybe be comfortable as a fan of some of these teams. Anyway, this is part one of our free agent frenzy discussion. We're going to talk mostly about the Lightning, the Bruins, the Canucks, and Nashville. Come back for a later video for more. One of the big names today, Steven Stamkos. You know, a lot of us throughout this past season thought they'd probably get something done. But no, he will be making his way to Nashville for the next 4 years and is signed for $8 million. Tampa let the most legendary player in their franchise walk, and that's kind of the cutthroat nature of the current NHL. Not many clubs will not just let a legend, but a 40-goal scorer walk, and that is what Stammer had last year. His scoring days aren't fully behind him, but he lost a step. I personally was surprised to see him get $8 million. Good for the Preds, though. They came out swinging and betting on themselves in free agency, signing the 34-year-old Stammer and adding Jonathan Marchessault, another one of the big tickets for free agency, for 5 years at 5.5. And that's Tyler Bertuzzi money. I personally would prefer to have Marchessault easy. I think that's a great deal. They also doled out for Brady Shea, the most handsome man in the NHL, arguably, giving him $7 million for 7 years to commit to their defensive identity. Again, that feels like a lot, but the cap will be blowing up over the next few years. Overall, I think Nashville fans have to be excited. They added some much-needed scoring. They gave Forsberg an all-star winger, and it should be a fun situation in Smashville. Tampa, however, also made a major addition of their own in the form of one Jake Guentzel. They locked him in for 9 at 7 years, so you can expect to see the Guentzel-Point Kucherov connection for some time. But moving from Nashville to another yellow team, Boston jumped on Zadorov, no longer Big Z, or Big Z as we call him in Canada, fully rejecting the nickname and saying, hey, Chara's here, never call me that again. Zadorov signed for 6 years with a $5 million average. The talk of free agency was about who was going to overpay for Zadorov, and to be honest, I don't really think this is an overpay. I think it's a pretty fair market value. Now, Lindholm, on the other hand, his contract might be a little rich. He got $7.75 a year for the next 7 years. That's a lot of bones for the man, but he's a playoff warrior, and if he can get back to scoring 40, like he did a couple years ago, that contract will obviously begin to look like a steal. That'll take Lindholm through until he's 36, so a good main juicy contract for him before he looks to either slow down or the Bees also made a couple other smaller additions, including Max Jones for 2 years at $1 million per. And of course, if the Bruins were stealing players from the Canucks, then the Canucks had to steal some Bruins players. So happy Canada Day and welcome to the West Coast, Jake DeBrusk, Danton Heinen, and Derek Forbort. DeBrusk, 7 years at 5.5, solid deal for him. He always performs in the playoffs, and he's got a good complete defensive game. Fits the Canucks well. Heinen signs for 2 at 2.25. I think that's fair for Vancouver, but Heinen also probably pretty happy with that deal. A bit of term and decent money for a guy who made the Bruins off of PTO last year and only made league minimum. The Canucks also signed Desharnais for $2 million for 2 years, along with some other guys, and that was only a small taste of what happened in free agency. I'm sure we've got more coming, but what do you think of these three teams, Nashville, Boston, and Vancouver, and which of them made the best moves out of day one of free agency? Let us know below.